Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, meathead. You're right. But intentions, man's unrealized potential is man's greatest burden. You know, maybe I've used 8 or 10 or 12% of my potential. You've used no percent or 1% or a half percent. And I'm still working. I still got a lot of shit I want to do before I'm dead. Unfortunately, I'm healthy and we have long-term genes in my family. The women live into the high 90s, low hundreds. And the men live into the early 90s, mid 90s. I've said this many times on YouTube. My dad died in 91. His older brother died in 94. My dad smoked 4 or 5 packs of cigarettes a day from the day he was 18 till 88. He quit at 88 and then he died at 91. He drank at least a fifth of hard alcohol a day from the time he was 18, including his military service and 2 wars. He said he drank more in the military, but anyway, 2 wars, a fifth of hard alcohol. And he went from bourbon to gin to vodka. His brother never smoked a cigarette, never had a drink, and lived 30 months longer than my dad, his older brother. 30 months longer. You pick the lifestyle. My dad had a lot of fun. Uncle Larry, I'm not so sure. I'm sure he had some fun. I don't know. I never saw any of it, but I'm sure he did. He was a Baptist minister. A lot of fun. You pick the poison. So I have good genes. I'm going to live a long time. And neither one of them ever did a push-up. After my dad missed the 1936 Olympics, he was an alternate of the 1936 Olympic gymnastic team. He never did a push-up after that. Not a push-up. Wiping his ass was the only exercise he ever did. 91. And he looked like Adonis, and then as he got older, he shrunk. But getting back to your question, they're not serious. Or they're not serious enough to when they hit the obstacles. The speed bumps on my driveway, they're going to think are Mount Everest. Or Denali, what's the name of in Alaska? Yeah, okay. You're going to think it's that, it's not. But I tell you the truth, I want to prepare you as much as possible. Pumping you up, pump up motivation like they do, jumping jacks and everybody gets happy. It's transitory. Doesn't last. So I want you to understand and expect, plan for the worst and be happy when it's not. And then when you've seen people so far, and you're going to see some $70 million guy in 7 months today, and you're going to see a number of others that they don't think it's easy. None of them think it's easy. Any questions about 5 calls a day? Yes, sir.
How do you get to the owner when you start with the secretary?
Okay, although I normally talk about it after lunch, I'm doing it now when you ask me. Okay, you're calling in the morning, there are no secretaries. You call at 7 in the morning, no fucking secretary is going to be there. You call on Saturday afternoon, no secretary is going to be there. 0. Now, my particular structure, there's always a secretary and assistant or to answer the phone. Till about 11 or 12 at night, I'm looking at a cat. And starting at about 8 in the morning. 8 in the morning. But if you get somebody, and we'll tell them, is the owner about today? I know it's Saturday, the owner about, oh yeah. Can I tell him what you want? He said, I want to discuss a potential joint venture. You're not talking about buying the company. Because when you tell them to buy the company, the secretary gets nervous, or the assistant, or the salesman, whoever answers the phone, they get paranoid because they sell the company, they get fired. So they don't tell the truth. And so, yeah, he's around. And then, hi, my name's Dan. When I was young, so I be less abrupt. My name's Danny. That's less offensive. It's kind of like a kid. My name's Danny. I'm the CEO of blah, blah, blah. Have you ever thought about selling your business? And when I was chasing an oil company, have you ever thought about selling your production? Production is the oil production or the gas production. And when you say the oil production, they think that you're, and rightfully, you're an oil guy. Yeah, I've thought about it. It's currently $31 a barrel. And all you want to them to say is, yeah. And then let them talk. And they will. There's a Saturday morning at 7:15 and nobody's there. They're having a coffee or a cigarette or taking out the trash or whatever they do. And they'll talk to you. And then the key, not for me, the key for you is don't stay on the fucking phone so long with them. Because they don't want to take out the trash. They don't want, they love their own business, but it's like you love your kids, but you don't want to change their diapers. I've changed one diaper of 3 kids, one diaper, and I was shamed into changing that diaper. And then you just talk to them. And the precursor is you want to talk to them so you can meet them. Now, some of you, and until you practice, until you get smoother, don't be meeting anybody. Because your skills are pretty shit. You can't hardly even ask me a question in here, and this is a pretty refined, simple atmosphere. People will say that, it's not so simple because I intimidate people. Well, I don't stand so much anymore because I used to stand here on the ledge and get in your face, and now, in recent years, I sit back, and so I'm less aggressive. But the aggression's still there, as you can, certain things, I still get aggressive. But that's how you get through. And to actually talk to, and sometimes if you didn't call early enough in the oil and gas business, they're already making their rounds, looking at the wells, looking at the this, that, and the other thing. And so in hospitals, when I used to call, doctors are already making their fucking rounds. I didn't know what that meant 30, 40 years ago, but now I do. So, and I'd figure out, some doctors get there really early. That's good. That's good. And then I used to figure out when I was buying hospitals, where do the docs go for a drink after work? In Washington, D.C., there's 2 or 3 hotels that professionals go to, doctors, etc. The Gray Adams, Sally's are my favorite. But unfortunately, politicians also go there. But anyway, and you'll figure this out. And if you're serious, when I take a bus to fucking, Dallas, Fort Worth, and when they were building it up 30, 35 years ago, but you got to be serious. You got to really want to. And you can't do it from behind your laptop. Although we've had a lot of kids do deals behind their laptop. But that laptop, just like they're making employees come back to work, the banks are going out and look at the assets now. Because they realize they loaned money in Camden, Arkansas or some shithole place, and that, they said there was 5 gas pumps and there's only 2. But this is it. And the thing that happened with the Swiss bank is good for us. Because we don't need commercial debt. Remember, commercial debt is our default. If everything else goes sideways, and then the seller is going to say, well, fuck, I don't want to wait for 16 weeks. Well, that's the market now. There might be another way. Well, what's that, sir? Lender's finance. And in your script, we call it 3 or 4 different things, but it's seller finance. But when we talk to the banks about seller finance, we call it seller's equity. No place in banking regulation in the United States or Europe does it say if there has to be equity in a deal. Does it say that you've got to put it in? I.e., when you go to your friends, fools, and family, or you go to a mezzanine lender, right? The mezzanine lender is not your money. It's their money. So that's the equity you're putting in, even though it's debt. Well, when you put the seller's note in, it's not your money, but it's equity. And the more you call it seller's equity, and the little banker is putting notes in your file, by the time you have 4 or 5 meetings, it's equity. I've been doing this so long, I've made tens of thousands of presentations. Just like an SBA loan, even though you have to sign. And in some, but the government, the United States federal government, guarantees 100% of the loan. Not 90, not 80, not 85, not 95. Yet, almost all banks will make you put in some equity. But we have guys doing SBA loans that put nothing in. They put a seller's note. That's not your equity. And just because, there's 3,100 SBA lending banks in America. And you talk to 2 of them and so you give up. I'm not saying I talked to 3,100, but I talked to hundreds. And there used to be a German deal. It's gone now. It expired in 2019, I think. One of Merkel's deal to save everybody. And you could hardly find a German that, I used to call him, you could hardly find a Herman that fucking knew that. Just like the 81 calls to the IMF. The 81st call, they said, oh, you mean so-and-so. Well, you're not going to make, 81 calls is no calls. But when you're about 45 or 46, what the hell fucking man mean? There's no call. When you get to 53, and Jesus Christ, I got to take a break. I got to have a cigarette or go fuck my girlfriend and we get it 75 or 70, and then you give up. I used to fall asleep making calls. Fall asleep. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions about that? Okay. So just imagine if you're doing 300 a day. The guy that did 70 million in 7 months, a couple hundred a day. And down deep inside, even the guys that are desperate know, well, I got to take the kids to school. You've already got 25 reasons why you're not going to do it. One of my superstars, Black Beauty. Love you, Black Beauty. Good-looking black chick. Stone Fox. And I take shit, and she says, Dan can call me whatever the fuck he wants. And so I got to go to court because now apparently her ex-husband, she's got money. Freeloading bum, had nothing to do with the kids. Now she's got money. Different story now. Okay, anything else about this? Okay, now, bear with me. I'm going to find the goals here. Oh, by the way, this is the other method that some of them use. Same results. 600 hours, search, sourced, 1,000 qualified individuals, 300 professionals interviewed, 7 strong candidates. This is the long method. Works just like the other method, but takes forever. And some of you will gravitate towards the forever formula because you don't really want to get to the end, because then at the end you got to perform. And that's why we have the 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and 13-year programs. The 2 longest living that I'm aware of, the success stories, are both Germanic. One's Austrian and one's German, 12 and 13 years. The 12 years comes from one of the wealthiest families from the Ottoman Empire from 200 years ago. Had no pressure, nothing. His allowance was $4 million a year or some bullshit. And so, but he took 12 years. The 13-year guy, rocket scientist, put shit on the moon, and he said it can't work without equity. And then finally he met a bunch of other Nazis that showed him. He says, oh, I guess it works without equity. 12 and 13 years. There may be longer. I don't know who they are, though. They'd be too embarrassed to come back to me, I think, to tell me it took them 18 years. Okay. Those are the clickers I talked about. I used to sit at the tables with you and make cold calls. Until we got through to a motivated seller. And you'd make the call, you'd make 40 calls, you can't get through to, I make 2 calls and I get through. How's that possible? Normally, first call. And that's why you think, some of you, you're here for me to be your chairman. Well, I'm not in the chairman business anymore. But yes, somebody asked me, how long would it take you to do a deal now? 36 hours. $36. I'd say 24, but I'm giving myself 50% latitude. 36 hours. I'd do a deal while I was still at the seminar. Because I'd come better prepared than you are. That's the difference. And nobody that you've talked to so far has done that. They've done it quick enough, 26 days, for an illiterate pig fucker with one eye and no teeth. I mean, fuck. That's pretty good. 75%, 2/3 of all the Fortune 1000 CEOs in America have one thing in common. They're martial arts trained. 2/3 of those 2/3 have something in common, military background. They either were in the military or they went into a military school or whatever. These are, that's not just about Steve Ballmer, right? This is about Steve choking people and shit. This is what 3 of my mentees with the WAS. And the little guy is the mentor of the WAS. He's the mentee of one of my mentees, Hall of Famer. I know the guys are more interested in the 2 girls. They're the one on the left rolls up health studios, wellness kind of stuff. And the one on the right rolls up sports teams. She was an All-American and Olympian volleyball player. They're sisters, by the way. Sisters. And now the 2 on the left are married. Why should they ever marry the sawed-off midget? Well, I have no idea, but, what do I know? The one on the right is not married. And she's available for speaking engagements, so to speak. The one who's as thick as 2 short planks. Now, for most of you, almost everybody in the room is risk averse at various levels. Okay, whether it's a 6'8" guy that tells your wife, spits in your wife's face that you're afraid to confront, I can relate to that, but I would still confront them. Or it's the boss that you have or you've had in work that talks shit and you don't confront him with talking shit because you're afraid of losing your job. You got to pay your mortgage. I understand all that, okay? Even though I understand all that, it never affected me. I always knew I could get another job when I had jobs. It never bothered me. So I always, and the big guys I hit anyway. So none of those things ever bothered me. Ever. And they don't bother me now. And as I was saying, fear is a shitty thing. When you're afraid, I don't know how some of you, and I don't mean this in a sarcastic way, I don't know how some of you get out of bed in the morning. I don't. Because you're afraid of everything. Now, you've seen these people that can't get out of their apartment, right? They can't leave their house. Some can't leave their bed. Whether they weigh 600 pounds or don't weigh 600 pounds, right? You've seen that, right? Well, you're at that end of the continuum because you're afraid. You're afraid of losing your money. First of all, nobody's got any fucking money to speak of, but you're afraid of losing it because you're not sure you can make it back again. If you thought you could make it back again, you wouldn't be afraid. You take more risks. The day of defending my present positions and possessions and positions are gone forever. Therefore, from this day forward, I will not have, you get this card in your gigs, I will not have to concern myself with such problematic issues as maintaining my present job or keeping up with my current standard of living. Instead, I will put the things which can go wrong on the defensive, and I will put the things that must go right in a ready formation for the attack. As of today, I am a dynamic, vigorous risk taker whose eyes are always turned towards my strengths, assets, rather than towards my weaknesses and liabilities. Henceforth, I will wake up in the morning thinking only of ways to do things I want to do, rather than waking up thinking of all the reasons why I cannot do those things. As of today, I will think repeatedly of many achievements which I am going to accomplish in the future that are vastly superior to anything I have ever done in the past. Clearly, these are the results that can be only obtained if I am first willing to take some kind of risk. Believe me, once I undertake this process, it won't be long before I start winning in a big way. I should understand, however, that as I become increasingly involved in the risk-taking process, I will find myself forced to draw upon resources which I previously didn't even realize I possessed. At first, this may prove very frightening to me. Nevertheless, I must always remember I will never hear of, read about, or see anyone achieve anything of greatness in his or her own life without first taking some kind of risk. The only men of 500, oh no, that's something else, forget that. Okay. Now, and that's not you. There's a reason why we do the boxing. There's a reason why in your weekly reports, what have I done to scare myself today? Scare, not step out of my fucking comfort zone. By definition, if you scare yourself, you're out of your comfort zone. Smelling the leather is the beginning. Going to, whatever, roses. When I was still a graduate, when I was still in graduate school, when I came back from the military, my girlfriend at the time and I used to go look at $1 and $2 million houses in Los Angeles. That was a big motherfucking house in 1969, 70. And we used to go to the open houses. They still have open houses for property? Yeah. Oh, we'll go to open house. And we show up. And I look young then. And my girlfriend looked a lot younger. Blonde, skirt, barely covered her snatch. Mini skirts, I think they used to call them back in the day. Do they still have mini skirts? No shit. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to the same place as you are. I haven't seen a mini skirt in years. Okay, so, and we go there and they'd say, well, when are your parents showing up? But I was driving a Rolls when I was 24. So I make sure I park up front. So they saw the car we came in. We used to stay, at that day, Pan Am used to have a flight from London to LA, Paris to LA, Berlin to LA. And we'd watch the people get off the Pan Am flights. First class, they used to come down a staircase. And in those days, men wore sports coats, suits, hats, and women, long coats. And we'd watch them. We used to stay once a month. We'd go to La Quinta Country Club in Palm Springs. Our rent in our little apartment in Marina del Rey was $204 a month, which was a lot of money in 1969-70. We'd spend $214 a night for one night at La Quinta. And the rich people, that's how I met Bob Hope. That's how I met Frank Sinatra. And they were in the men's grill at La Quinta. And they used to go around with a sign. If you had a message, there'd be a sign that said, call for Peña. And so, yeah, that's me. He says, there's a girl and men's grill, men. There's a girl that purports to be with you here. What does she look like? And then Bob Hope, who was sitting 2 seats over, he says, she's got any tits? Let her in. So they let my girlfriend, Linda at the time, come in and with her mini skirt and her And so Bob Host says, you want to sit on my lap? And we'll talk about the first thing that comes up. And I did all kinds of these things. And didn't have any money. I'm a grad student, fucking grad students, and the odd professor here and there. But kids still don't do it. Going to the Ferrari dealership and getting thrown out because you're dressed like a fucking bum isn't expanding your comfort zone. And I did this weekend after weekend after weekend. There used to be a Chasen's, was a restaurant where all the movie stars went in edge of Beverly Hills in Hollywood. Because where I came from, and my entree to that is when I was an officer, young officer, and I went to embassies and, et cetera, and I was around very senior or diplomats. So that helped me make that bridge. Otherwise, I might have been intimidated. Okay. Anybody from Australia? I know we have Australians, but you're kind of a half-ass Australian. Jason Nagy has set standards, new standards for QLA. Goodbye.